Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel database with plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. So we are continuing our run of Classic X-Men number 16 from 1987. Classic X-Men is how I was introduced to these earlier stories. I am a child of the 80s. I was 12 years old when this came out. And these issues, going back, is how I was introduced to X-Men. I started X-Men during the Mutant Massacre time. And Classic X-Men just sort of gave me a peek back. Trades weren't a big thing. The first trade I ever got was in the early 90s when they did a collection of the Dark Phoenix saga. Other than that, I had never ever, when these things came out, had known anything about it. Classic X-Men is how I learned. So the reason I chose Classic X-Men, here's a great beautiful cover by Arthur Adams, inked by Terry Austin, is because of the supplemental material. The stuff that is covered in Classic X-Men, Chris Claremont gives you a more in-depth way to provide character by, just more introspective and more backgrounds on things. So we're going to be doing Classic X-Men up until the backup stories are gone. Eventually Classic X-Men just became like Marvel Tales, where it just did straight up reprints. No backup stories, no supplemental materials. Once they does that, we're just gonna then switch to regular Uncanny X-Men. So alright, here is an original of that cover by Art Adams. Look at that, just beautiful. I wish to God Arthur Adams drew more interior covers, but I don't know. I haven't seen some of these issues in forever. I think that this is just is it Major Maple Leaf? I know that he was changed to Guardian. Maybe it's just Guardian, his first appearance. So this kind of lets you know some of the supplemental material that's in there, and then it tells you a little bit about the backup story. So this, of course, reprints X-Men 109 from 1977. So he went by Weapon Alpha. Remember that Wolverine was Weapon X. John Byrne is still not doing the covers. This is his second issue as penciler. I have a playlist. Feel free to check out if you have missed anything. Here's this beautiful frontispiece. Of course, Chris Claremont wrote the entire thing. Tom Orzechowski is still not the full-time letterer, so he's only doing the lettering on the supplemental material. You can see here that this Joe Rosen was the regular letterer. John Bolton, of course, is the backup artist for the backup story. And Kieran Doyer does the supplemental material. John Byrne, of course, does the main stuff. He was still not plotting it. So, all right. So, we got the X-Mansion. And here are the X-Men arriving finally home. They were in New York City. Now they're back at the mansion. And so Wolverine, of course, is itching to get this thing off him, which he didn't have to. He was wearing a shirt. So why the hell did he have this thing on it? So this is, of course, not his regular costume. So feel free, like I said, to get the backup. So she is annoyed at Nightcrawler for teleporting, and Lilandra's a little nervous. This is kind of her first time on Earth now, so And so McTaggart's like, "You scare me half to death." And of course, he smells like brimstone, I guess, when he teleports, which is kind of like rotten eggs. And he apologizes for that. So here comes a hand, and it's Banshee, and the two of them get a kiss. And Storm comes up to see her flowers, but her flowers are almost dead because they haven't been watered. So she creates a rain so that they can get something to drink, which of course she feels great and goes naked. so and so Jean Grey's parents are here, and she goes, "I could have sworn I just heard thunder right over our heads, but there isn't a cloud in the sky." And the wife is like, "John, forget it, the weather. We need to talk to our daughter." "Oh, John, what's happened to her?" "Remember the X-Men were at her house, so..." And Cyclops is like, "They look scared stiff, Jean, as though they're hiding it well." And Phoenix says, "Are you surprised, Scott? A big chunk of their lives has been turned topsy-turvy, and they don't know me anymore. At times, I don't even know myself." So, and now we're gonna get again, kind of a recast, I guess, a replay of everything that's kind of happened. So every comic is somebody's first. So I have a playlist. Feel free to check it out. I've had lots of time to think since our return, but I'm still not sure if I did the right thing, she thinks. The more I wonder about it, the more confused everything gets. And so her dad says, Jean. "Yes, Dad," she says. "Can we go somewhere and talk?" "Sure, we should have done this sooner," she says. "Jean, do you want me to come along?" And she says, "No, Scott, if you don't mind, I think we'd rather be alone." "I understand," says Scott, "but what about you and me, Jean? When are we going to talk?" says Cyclops. Her parents, who they've had, they're like all scared stiff, and Scott can just think about himself. Typical Cyclops. All right. And so he's kind of going, how much she's changed since she went to Phoenix, and all the things that she's done, and about Corsair, and how he feels that he knows him. So here comes Banshee and Moira. Banshee says, "All alone," and he guys, "Guess the story of my life. Either of you seen Alex?" "Oh, Scott, I've been meaning to tell you, he's gone." "Yep." And he's like, "Gone? Gone where?" "To her island. Him and Lorna Dane wanted some time to themselves to get their heads back in order after Charles freed them from Eric the Red's mind lock. They'll be helping Jamie Madrox fix up my lab." Jamie Madrox, of course, is the Multiple Man, who is in Peter David's run in X Factor. I don't know if I'll ever get to that one. Doing a video a day is hard enough because I don't do this full time. This is for fun. So I work for a living, so I do these videos on my spare time. So she says she didn't know he had left without saying goodbye. The lad has the manners of a brick. "He'll be phoning, I'm sure, Scott, when they arrive." "It's all right, Banshee. It wasn't anything important." And so we got an interlude here. Target smart. Tracking systems locked on. He's stationary at the moment. Estimate primary contact in 2 hours. So here's the supplemental material. So this is, I forgot, James Hudson. And so he's about to go get Wolverine. Because remember, Wolverine left under bad conditions. And so he's going to go get him. Talking a little bit about Wolverine. Kieran Doyer is the penciler for this. I think Terry Austin is the inker. I don't remember. And so he's a little nervous because him and Wolverine were really good friends. But here he goes. I love the use of screen tones right here. And so this is also supplemental material, kind of Lilandra getting used to Earth and how things are, and just being in human quarters. So turns on this thing and the water hits her and she's like, what the heck? Remember, they're bird-like creatures, so she some birds like water. So here comes Charles. I don't know how he got upstairs, but hey, I think they're upstairs. And so he's bringing her some towels, and so of course they're in love with each other. And so Chris Claremont added this again to give a better picture. So, and I'm very happy that he did that. So now we got Nightcrawler. Kurt's calling this lady called Amanda, who he's got a picture of. He's like, hey, what are you doing this evening? Would you like to go out? And of course, she must have said yes, because he says wonderful in German. And then he teleports. And then teleports to Colossus, who's trying to write a letter home. He's frustrated. He's like, I'm not good at letters. I'd rather see them. And then, of course, he smells Nightcrawler. And he goes, are you interested in a double date? So he's going to go with an Elizabeth. So we're going to see Star Wars. It's one of my favorite films. But he says, I would love to, but I'm going on a picnic with Moira and Sean Cassidy. Tell Elizabeth I'm very sorry. That I will. See you later, alligator. So he appears towards Cyclops. He calls him Nightcrawler instead of Kurt. He's kind of in his own thing, and he sees, her turning into Phoenix to show the parents. The parents, of course, are very Cyclops is very bitter here, kind of just talking down at Nightcrawler. So Nightcrawler, of course, is trying to get him to snap out of it, but he was not able to. He almost had him, he feels, but Sean Cassidy interrupted, and so Cyclops also does not want to go to the picnic, so it looks like it's Storm, Colossus, and then Banshee and Moira McTaggart. And then Wolverine is like, hey, mind if I tag along? And you can see here he's dressed in his uniform. And so they're like, since when are you sociable? I ain't crashing your picnic. I just need to lift the far side of the river. I've been out of the woods for too long. I'm itching to do some hunting. And of course, Storm is like, you would take the lives of innocent animals not for survival, but merely for sport. And then Wolverine. Of course, Wolverine's a jerk in the early on. Even if I would, Broad, what flaming business is it of yours? I said hunting, honey bunny. I said nothing about killing. It takes no skill to kill. It takes skill to sneak up close to a skittish doe and touch her. Wolverine, I'm sorry. I misjudged you. I could care less, Ororo. You've all been misjudging me since the day I joined this turkey outfit. So we got another interlude with Canadian Shield. No, it's not the name. That's just what I'm calling them. So here we go. And so here's Wolverine getting close to that deer. And then the deer senses something and goes away. And Wolverine's like, what the heck? What set her off? He knows it wasn't him. And of course, Weapon Alpha, who we know as, I believe it's Guardian in Alpha Flight. I was never big in Alpha Flight, so. All right. So he's here to go get Wolverine and send him back to Canada. And, of course, we go back to Giant Size X-Men, where Wolverine left, but not in the best of conditions. And so he's like, I'm not leaving. And so he's about to go, and Guardian's wearing a force field, and he makes a comment. He's like, he's faster than ever. I barely got my shield up to me. And so he hits Wolverine, and Wolverine hits back, so off we go. John Byrne is such a good penciler. You can see why when he left to go do Fantastic Four and Dave Cockrum came back, I was a little disappointed. Not because Dave Cockrum's a a bad person or a bad artist. It's just, man, John Byrne is just above a lot of other people. So, and so we're at the lake. I don't like lakes. Lakes are cold. Rivers are cold, so I never get on them. So, Storm and Colossus talk for a little bit, and meanwhile these two are kind of playing a little bit. And so, as they talk, here comes Wolverine. I love Peter's when he's like surprised. Lennon's ghost. So, and of course, here is Weapon Alpha. We'll call him Weapon Alpha for now, so that he's like, my business with Weapon X, and he's like, he's my friend. And this guy's like, this guy sounds Russian. And he turns, of course, into Colossus, and boom! Or Crumb, as it says here. And so, it's not over yet. And now comes Storm, and Wolverine's like, don't, he's mine. So, and she throws it, but, oh no, sorry. He picked up the tree. I'm like, and then she uses lightning and kind of destroys the tree. So, Guardian says, you throw a mean zap, lady, but I'm no slouch in that department either. And he hits Colossus, and it ricochets and hits Moira McTaggart. And he's like, no. And he's like, all right, Major Maple Leaf, or whatever you call yourself, you're the man responsible. And if it costs me my life, I'm going to make you pay. And, of course, he's using a sonic scream. By the way, he had heard its last issue, so, which I have covered. But he's, because he's angry, he's got the adrenaline pumping, so. And so they're going to get him, but he ends up disappearing. And so, they're going to go back to see what's going on and check up on the other. And Colossus is holding Moira McTaggart. And Colossus says, Wolverine, that man spoke like he knew you. Who is he? Why is he after you? And Wolverine says, once upon a time, Petey, we were buddies, almost brothers. I'm real sorry, folks, but today's fracas was just the beginning. From here on in, things are going to get worse. So, next issue, Shadow of the Gun. All right, so we have, you're going to see something here. They didn't cut this part because that's what was originally going to be the next issue. But it wasn't, because in Classic X-Men, they didn't cover this issue. We're going to cover it by itself, but this issue was not covered in Classic X-Men. But we go back to... he teleports himself back. He's back in Canada, and this is his wife. And he goes, I could use a hug. She ends up becoming the new Guardian after he dies, or almost dies, or whatever. You know, I really don't know much about Alpha Flight. I just kind of know a little bit from the John Byrne run, and then I have never read an issue in Alpha Flight that John Byrne didn't write. He only did like the first 20-some issues, and then that's it. That's all I know about Alpha Flight, is that. Anything else, no clue. So then next, Mind Games, because then that would be the next issue of Classic X-Men. So, all right, so these are some of the edits that were made in issue 16 from here. Remember, this was originally what it appeared, but instead then they took this part away and added this part with Karen Doyer drew. So, and then a couple of changes here. So, and then here's some coloring changes that were made. So we get our backup here, and so Ireland, and here we have Chris Claremont doing a lot of dialogue because that's what he likes. And this lady here, I should say this person. It's too late. I already said lady. Oh no, it's not a lady. It was Sean Cassidy. There is a lady coming up though. So We got the two bad cops here. So this is Banshee. And so here they have him confused because this is who they wanted. And so she goes, hey, come on. And so off they go. And they're going to go after him. And so they go where kind of a bike can go, but it's hard for the police to go in their big cars, and they just can't keep up. So, and this cop really wants them. John Bolton is a great artist here. So anyway, they keep going, and the car keeps going and even shooting at them. And so they're going to go through a cliff. Of course, Banshee hides, and he does his scream, but of course he can fly. And so hangs on to her and then flies him off. And then turns out it's a woman here, and he's like, she's beautiful. So she's mad because she lost the bike. And so this is the same castle from when Juggernaut was in there. So they're gonna have it's gonna make her something to eat. And then this is gonna be Black Tom Cassidy, but of course this is when he was much younger. So Black Tom, of course, isn't quite. So he takes her home and they kiss, but she also has a relationship with him. So she's kind of dating the two cousins here. And so they're going to go on a date, and he's riding his bike. And of course that cop runs him over, and he's like, someday, somehow we'd meet again and I get even, you know. So he goes back, and, you know, Black Tom's already like, man, I love that woman, and blah, blah, blah. So he says, she's waiting. And he's like, no, don't ruin her evening, and please go in my stead. And Black Tom shows up. He's not called Black Tom yet. And so they're having a dance, and she's kind of pretending that she's happy, or perhaps, and he's like, does it matter so much that it's me and not him? Of course not. I care for you as much as for him. She goes, that's a lie. You're here, Tom. He isn't. And so he wants to be quiet because then he'll win. And then Tom, because he had a conscience back then, says, Sean was on his way here, Mav. And then he kind of tells him everything that happens. And she walks out, and he goes, do you hate me for what I've done? And it says here, to his surprise, she smiles, because we don't get that. We just see her leaving. So she says, for being true, for caring more for me than yourself, no matter what the cost. Oh, Tom, how could I ever hate the man who's proved himself my dearest friend? So they have to add that, because on the visual, you're just looking like, well, she's leaving. Of course she's mad. But next, Taste of Vengeance. So, all right. And then we, of course, get the beautiful back cover by John Bolton here. So wonderful. So Classic X-Men number 16, written by Chris Claremont, drawn by John Byrne, supplemental material by Karen Doyer and John Bolton, inked by Terry Austin in the main story. Like and subscribe, and I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.